Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, we're going to be doing the first video of the new year involving the $5 Windows 98 PC. And as you can probably tell from the title, that video is going to be on a pretty cool piece of software called Gateway GoBack. Now this was actually sent out to me by a viewer by the name of Brandon back in November, so it's been a while since he's actually sent this to me, but I've finally gotten around to making this video. And essentially what this was is it was an alternative to Microsoft's System Restore program that was bundled with Windows. But the neat thing about this is it was actually released before System Restore was even a thing. Now this CD that Brandon sent me came from October of 1999. It was actually one of those System Restore CDs that we took a look at a different System Restore CD, a different version of this CD in this video that'll be up in the cards right now, where we actually restored this computer to factory settings. So he sent me a different version of that CD that came with Gateway GoBack. And so this CD, the date that it was dated is about 8 months before Windows ME was released to manufacturing, which was the first version of Windows to include System Restore. As the name, probably suggests, this is a system restoring tool where if you were having problems with your computer, whatever kind of problems that it might be, this program would allow you to restore your system back to a previous date and time. Now there's a bit of a complex history about this program. It was actually created by a company called WildFile back in 1998. That's when it actually first came out. And then in early 2000, a company by the name of Adaptec purchased WildFile for around $29 million. Then in April of 2001, Adaptec handed off GoBack to their newly created subsidiary, Roxio. And then in 2003, Symantec, which is now known as Norton LifeLock, actually purchased the GoBack program from Roxio for around $13 million. And then finally in 2009, Symantec implemented some features of the GoBack program into Norton Ghost, which essentially replaced it with an updated version of Norton Ghost. So that is kind of the history of this program. Very, very brief, by the way, of just how it was bought out over the years. Now, somewhere in that whole, little brief history, WildFile, back when it was still owned by WildFile, they licensed uses of this program to Gateway, who then named it Gateway GoBack, which they bundled with a lot of their computers. And this computer right here, or at least this version of the Gateway Restore CD that we're taking a look at today, actually has that program on it. So without any further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into this program and see what it's all about. And I'm going to be kind of telling you guys what makes this program different from System Restore once we actually get into installing it. So it arrives, like I said, in this Gateway Restore CD, and if you run the auto run executable, you've got a couple of different options right here up at the top. This does look a little bit different from the version that we took a look at in that previous video. But if you go over here to software, you can see that right here there is a button labeled Gateway GoBack, and if you click on that, it first asks you to read the README text document, which is actually pretty important. There's a lot of valuable information in there, so we're going to say yes, and I'm going to kind of briefly skim through this with you guys. Now, one of the major things that makes Gateway GoBack different from System Restore is how it actually functions. So you see, just to give you a very typical example, if you were going to use System Restore, you would obviously have to be able to boot into your Windows installation to select a restore point that you wanted to go back to. Now this is fine, but if your Windows installation somehow became corrupted and you weren't able to boot back into it, you were basically out of luck. Now, GoBack, on the other hand, actually rewrites both the master boot record and the partition table. And what this essentially means is it allows GoBack to kind of be in a separate place on the hard drive that you can actually boot into even if you can't boot into Windows. Even if your installation is corrupted and you can't access anything on your Windows partition, you could still access GoBack and you could still actually restore from a previous restore point, or as I believe they call them in here, they call them save points instead of restore points. So that is a very like bite-sized version of how this program works. Now, this wasn't without its problems. There were definitely some disadvantages to using this program, and that is some of those things are kind of highlighted in this README document right here. So if you scroll down, you can see that under installing or moving hard drive, this is a big one. For you to actually install a new hard drive in your system, you would actually have to disable Gateway GoBack and then re-enable it once you're done. It's kind of a minor inconvenience, but it is something that you have to do if you want, this program to still work properly. And then it says right here that if you want GoBack to track the new hard drive's events, you'll need to uninstall it completely and then reinstall it. Again, a very minor inconvenience, but it is something that you're going to have to do that you wouldn't have to do if you were using System Restore. Now, obviously, System Restore didn't even exist at this point, so if you wanted to use this program, this is kind of what you would have to deal with. Another big thing is not only operating system compatibility. This says it only works with Windows 95 and Windows 98. It doesn't support Linux, OS2, Windows NT. In fact, it doesn't even support the NTFS file system. Later versions did, but this one does not. But one of the big things is if you used multiple operating systems on your computer and essentially dual booted, that could actually create problems because, like I said, this program rewrites the master boot record and the partition table, so that can actually create problems for you, when you're wanting to boot into that other operating system, whether it be Linux, OS2, or a older version of Windows. So those are some of the disadvantages of this program, but I still think this is a very, very useful program, and we're going to go through and actually take a look at how this would actually work if you actually came to a point where you could not boot into your Windows installation and you needed to restore it. So we've got the installation wizard opened up here. We're just going to agree to the terms. We're going to put in our information, which you see it already auto-populates what you put in when Windows installs. And normally you do need to actually have a CD key if you had bought this program outright, but since this is the special Gateway version, you don't need to have it, and it just auto-populates Gateway Customer in there. So you basically don't need to have a product key. Now we can go with custom install here and actually show you some of the other options that this program gives you. And the first one is it's going to ask you where you want the GoBack data to be stored. So if you had multiple hard drives in your system, you could choose where you wanted it. And then you can also choose how much space should be reserved for GoBack history. It defaults to 205 megabytes. So we're just going to go with that and click finish, and now it's going to copy files and initialize registry entry, so we'll let it do that. Then it asks you if you want to have a shortcut placed on your desktop. We'll say yes, and now what it has to do is actually restart your system to finish up the installation. So let's go ahead and press OK, and I'll show you what it does, because it's actually going to boot into its own little environment to finish this process. So right now the system is rebooting, and it is going to actually load the CD because I still have the restoration CD in here. We're just going to press boot from hard disk. And you'll notice that what it does is instead of loading Windows, it comes up with this interface right here where it tells you that GoBack installation will now continue. So you press OK, and it actually finishes that whole process. This is actually done outside of Windows. Windows is not loaded right now. Alright, and now it is ready to reboot the system once again, so we're going to press OK and let it do that. And this right here is the interface where if you were having any problems, it's kind of like a little timeout thing where you can actually press that to invoke Gateway GoBack before Windows actually starts. But once it actually times out, it just begins to load Windows like normal. And you can see that on boot up, we now have this protected by Gateway GoBack, a little watermark there that briefly appears, and we're just going to have to ignore this audio hardware. That just comes up because I don't have the proper audio drivers installed. And you can see here that it says GoBack installation completed successfully. We'll press OK, and now we will just boot into Windows just like normal. Now you can see that the application is actually running in the background from this little icon displayed in the system tray. So you could access this by right-clicking on this and going to display GoBack menu, or you could just double-click on the icon that's on your desktop. And this is the main interface right here. You can see it says Gateway GoBack by WildFile. And you've got three options right here. Your first option is to watch a short video and just kind of see how this program works. Now this is not going to be able to play the audio because I don't have the audio drivers installed, like I said. This video, somebody actually uploaded it to YouTube. I will leave that video down below. Brandon was actually the one who sent me the link. If you guys want to go ahead and just kind of check out the promotional material that Gateway had for this product. So that's the first option. Your second option is to revert your entire hard disk to a time in the past past or view your hard drive as it was before. And your third option is what we're going to take a look at first, which is recover a deleted file or get back an earlier version of a changed file. So you can also check if you want assistance with this task or not. We're just going to uncheck that and go to the third option here, because this, what I just want to show you is basically a file-specific, tool where you can get back specific files that you might have deleted. Instead of restoring your entire hard drive, if you just deleted one file by accident, you could go into here and actually restore it if GoBack was able to find it. So that's pretty self-explanatory, but obviously the main program is in this second option where you can revert your entire hard disk to a time in the past. So if you press that, alright, so here we are in the main Gateway GoBack interface, which kind of contains most of the functionality of this program. And you can see that right off the bat, it looks a lot different than something like Microsoft System Restore. And that is because it actually has an entire log right here of every action that's been performed on your system, every file that's been opened, every file that's been renamed or modified, and it's got these things called system save points. And what these are the multiple different save points, basically snapshots of your system that it just automatically creates at certain times. So you can see it's made a bunch of them here. So you can see that, like, for example, when I ran gbmenu.exe, it created a system save point. They're called save points instead of restore points. That's just what GoBack calls them. And then when I opened up GoBack drive.exe, it created a system save point. So it's got all of these just different system save points that it automatically creates for you, so long as it's obviously running in the background. And what this allows you to do is have multiple different points in time that you can go back to if you later on experience a problem. If you get infected with a virus down the road and you still have one of these save points accessible to you from Gateway GoBack, you could restore from that, even if you're not booted into Windows, which we're going to kind of show you, how that works in a minute here. But what you can also do is, say you didn't really need to restore your entire hard drive, you just wanted to get back a file that might have gotten deleted. What you could do is actually use this tool to create a GoBack drive, which actually shows up in your system like a regular hard drive. And I can actually show you how this works, because if we scroll back here, I actually have a file that I created and then later deleted. So you can see that it created a system save point right at this time, right after I made this 8.txt file, which is no longer on the desktop. What I can do is create a GoBack drive, and now it's going to say that GoBack drive E has been created, showing drive C as it was at 4:00 p.m. on January 3rd, 2020. So we're going to press OK, go into Explorer here, and you can see there's this new drive, which is just, a separate partition that's made for us that we can access. And now I can go into C, Windows, and I can go into Desktop and take this file right here, say this was like some sensitive document that accidentally got deleted. I can then copy that back to my desktop on my C drive, and it will be back. Here it is right here. I just copied it back over, and it's totally accessible just like normal. So that's how powerful that this program is. And once you're done with it, you can hit discard GoBack drive, and it will just discard it for you, so now you can't access that anymore. So that is definitely one of the very very powerful features of this program, but there's a lot more to show you, and that's in the save points that it actually creates, and how you can actually revert to those even if you're not booted into Windows. Now obviously the amount of megabytes that you specified in the beginning of the installation that you wanted GoBack to basically have available to it limits the amount of save points that it can create. And that is actually explained very well in the help document right here, where it also tells you that what is GoBack? It's the missing piece of the operating system. It is neither a backup/restore product nor a utility product. It is a remarkable tool that integrates itself into the operating system to protect you from data loss. This includes the everyday oops that occur from user error or software problems, file recoveries of deleted or overwritten files, virus attacks, problems from software installation, even system crashes. Generally, with GoBack installed, you can easily back out of trouble regardless of whether it was caused by you, your system, non-hardware related issues obviously, software, or even the year 2000. Hey, we just talked about the year 2000 in that previous video. Even a crashed system that won't allow your computer to boot usually can't stop you. And this is where it actually talks about how much space that you actually allow it to use. With GoBack enabled, as you use your computer, GoBack keeps track of every move you make that affects your hard disk, allowing you to go back in time. You can retrieve specific files or entirely restore your hard disk. The amount of hard disk space that can be set aside aside on your computer for GoBack determines how far back in time GoBack is able to retrieve information. Typically, if 10% of the hard drive is set aside for GoBack, it can maintain at least 1 week's worth of data. So that's pretty cool. I believe that was the default setting as well, because I think it's set aside like 200 megabytes, and this is a 2 gig drive, so that actually might be the default, but you can obviously give it more if you wanted to. So that's actually very, very awesome. And now I'm going to actually show you how you could actually restore your hard drive if you weren't able to boot into Windows anymore. So to do that, we're going to actually restart the system. So we're going to go to shutdown and restart. And let's say that now, as the system is restarting, that I can't boot into Windows. The installation has become corrupted somehow and I'm not able to access any of my data. Well, what I can do is, before Windows loads, GoBack is going to come up and display the same menu we saw before, which says if you're having problems, press spacebar. So you press spacebar, and then it comes up with this menu. And this is where you can also disable GoBack if you want to actually make a modification to your hard disk and also add a new hard disk. This is where you would come in to disable it. You can also boot from a floppy diskette if you had one with GoBack drivers installed, and you can also view about information. So, and it says right here, it's as easy as setting a clock, and that is literally as easy as it is, and I'm going to show you. It is really cool. So you hit on revert drive right here, and it's going to find all of the different restore points or save points that it has. So the first one that it comes up with was 11 minutes ago, but let's say that I try to restore to that and I still have the same problem. I can boot back into this and say, no, go to an earlier time. And then it's going to say, okay, here's one from 17 minutes ago, and then I can say, no, go to an even earlier time, and it's going to pull up 27 minutes ago, which was actually when this program installed, so that is the earliest snapshot that we have. So I could revert all the way back to that, or I could even go to like a later time, which was 2 minutes ago. So we're going to go all the way back to when I first installed this program, which is now 28 minutes ago, and say yes. And now it's going to say, okay, GoBack will now proceed to revert drive C back to the state as of January 3rd, 2020 at 3:54 p.m. Are you sure you want to proceed? So we're going to say yes, that we want to proceed, and now it is going to begin to restore that snapshot that it created back onto the hard drive. And you can see it's done that right here. GoBack has successfully reverted drive C. Although it does tell you that if you still can't get the system to start, you can try going further back in time, and it does say that multiple attempts may be required to find a good time to revert to. So you just basically go through this exact same process. And then it says, note that when your system reboots, Windows might say it was shut down improperly and automatically run ScanDisk. This is normal. If ScanDisk detects any problems, direct it to correct them. And let's see if ScanDisk comes up here. It actually did that for me before when I tried this off camera. It looks like it actually doesn't, so that's pretty cool. But now it actually says, system is updating your configuration files. We once again have the protected by gateway GoBack watermark down there. We've got the same audio problem. They just don't have the proper driver installed. And now it should come up with a little dialogue saying that gateway, here it is right here, GoBack installation completed successfully, because this was back when we first installed GoBack. So it thinks that it is just like a fresh install of the program. And now you can see that we're back just exactly as this computer was like 30 minutes ago. And that 8.txt file that we had on the desktop was gone, because that was a file that I created after this snapshot, so it is no longer there. But what you could do is go back into Gateway GoBack and, say you wanted to still recover that file, you can still get the same log because it still keeps track of everything. And I can go back here and, to this system save point, hit create GoBack drive, and then I can go into my computer, into that drive, and still access that same file just like I showed you before. There it is. So yes, it is a very powerful program. And like I said, the ultimate fate of this program is that it was purchased by Symantec and then folded into their Norton Ghost product, which they didn't really implement every single feature of this program into Norton Ghost, but they implemented some of them. So unfortunately, this program, as it is in this state right now, is not around anymore. But this was definitely a pretty cool piece of software for the time, and it was pretty awesome that it just came free with your Gateway computer. I assume this piece of software cost money if you wanted to go out and buy the non-Gateway branded version of it. But if you had purchased a Gateway computer that came with this Restore CD, well, you got it for free, which is pretty awesome. But there you have it, guys. That is a demonstration of Gateway GoBack. I just want to give a huge thank you again to Brandon for actually sending this out to me. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to this video. I was just working on a bunch of other projects, as you guys can probably tell from all the videos that I uploaded on the channel recently. But I finally got around to it, and I'm glad that I did it because this is a pretty cool piece of software. If you guys enjoyed this video, definitely sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to get subscribed down below and turn on those channel notifications if you haven't already to get notified whenever that I upload a new video, which I do every single week on this channel. And as always, guys, if you have any comments or feedback or any questions for me, be sure to leave those down below, as I always enjoy helping you guys out and you know, reading what you guys have to say. And as always, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.